I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me
Paris, July 12, 2025. For a moment, the city of light fell silent. Not because it lacked brilliance, but because the brightest light had just stepped out of a gilded doorway, and Paris knew it was no longer the same. From behind heavy hotel curtains, Kim Taehyung, or as the world calls him, V of BTS, emerged like a painting that had come to life. No music was needed. The street outside his hotel turned into a symphony of gasps and screams. The air trembled. Phones rose like stars above a sea of trembling hands, and time, cruel as it is, decided to slow down for him. Taehyung wasn't merely attending the Celine fashion show that night. He was the moment the runway forgot how to shine without him. Dressed in a black satin coat etched with gold as if it were tailored by midnight itself, Taehyung moved with a grace that didn't belong to earth. His gaze was sharp, but his smile was soft, two worlds colliding in one frame, one man. The cameras didn't click. They bowed. Earlier that day, Instagram nearly broke. Photo after photo, Taehyung offered glimpses of his time in Paris, not as a celebrity, but as a soul wandering in beauty. A mirror selfie. Tousled hair. Moonlit eyes. He wasn't posing. He was breathing art. One post showed him working out, arms carved by discipline, sweat glistening like dew. Another, gentler, showed him in front of the Eiffel Tower, scarf fluttering like a whisper of a poem. There was one where he sat at a tiny cafe, oversized sweater draping him like a hug. His fingers curled around a warm drink. His gaze somewhere far beyond the glass. Perhaps looking for a memory. Or letting one go. And yet, the night had just begun. The moment Taehyung arrived at the Celine venue, something shifted in the room. Eyes turned. Conversations faded. Someone whispered. He doesn't walk in, he descends. Vogue called it a coronation. Elle France wrote, when Taehyung walks, the runway becomes irrelevant. He is the show. Even before the first model took a step, Taehyung had stolen the narrative. Sitting in the front row beside Park Bo-gum, the two shared quiet laughter that melted the coldness of luxury. Suzy, seated nearby, couldn't help but glance again and again. There was something magnetic. Something unspoken. Taehyung's hand brushed the rim of his glass, and somehow, social media turned it into a cinematic montage. A moment that could be framed and hung beside the Mona Lisa. Someone tweeted, "Taehyung drinking water is more art than my entire thesis." After the show, the stars of the night weren't just the designs, but the man who wore fashion like it was an extension of his heartbeat. Fans outside screamed his name, not just with joy but with longing. Because tonight he wasn't just their idol. He was their myth made visible. He waved. He smiled. He made a finger heart. And somehow millions felt it pierce their chests. Inside the grand gala that followed, the elite of the fashion world toasted champagne, but their glances kept returning to him. Whispers traveled from table to table, about a rumored Celine collaboration, an exclusive design line, perhaps even a global campaign. But Taehyung seemed unbothered. He sat back like a man who had already won the room simply by existing in it. Paris tonight wasn't just celebrating fashion. It was mourning the hours before he arrived and dreading the hours when he'd leave. Taehyung had just returned from military service. But there were no signs of rust, no hesitation in his stride. In fact, he seemed reborn. Sharper. Deeper. Like a man who had walked through silence and returned with a louder soul. Fans coined it instantly. The Golden V era. Speculation surged about a solo album. About a new chapter. About a future that looked blindingly golden. But for now, Paris didn't care about tomorrow. Because tonight they had him. And as he disappeared behind velvet curtains once more, the night felt unfinished, as if the moon itself waited for just one more glance. Taehyung didn't attend a fashion show. He reminded the world that elegance isn't worn. It walks. It breathes. It smiles with soft eyes and wears black satin lined in gold. And when it leaves, it takes the breath of a city with it. He doesn't need a runway. The world is his stage. When Taehyung comes to Paris, fashion stops pretending, it becomes real. He didn't dress for the night. The night dressed for him. Let the headlines write what they will. But for those who saw him that night in Paris, they'll call it the night reality turned into a dream, and Taehyung was the reason.
Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign. sign. I feel like I'm
Paris may have dimmed its chandeliers, but for Taehyung the night was far from over. After the final bow of the models and the swirl of champagne at the gala, he slipped into a quiet black car, not with a grand farewell but a soft nod, almost like a man escaping his own legend. And that's what the cameras didn't capture. Because some stories are written not in light, but in what comes after. The hotel room, midnight. Behind the curtains of his luxury suite, Kim Taehyung took off the gold lace jacket. Slowly, deliberately, as if peeling off not just clothing, but the persona he had worn for hours. The mirror didn't reflect a global icon. It reflected a man. Tired eyes. Faint shadows under them. A hint of loneliness. He stood barefoot on cold marble, watching the city glitter beneath him, but not entering him. Because no matter how bright Paris shone, it couldn't touch the part of him that missed something far warmer. Far quieter. The photo that wasn't posted. In his phone there was a photo. Not from the fashion show. Not from the Eiffel Tower. But from a bench in Montmartre earlier that morning. Taehyung sat alone. No stylist. No security. Just a wool coat and a book in his hand. The corner of the page still bent where he had stopped reading. A couple passed by and didn't recognize him. And for a second he smiled. A real one. Because sometimes the best fame is being invisible in a city that doesn't need to know your name. A message that was never sent. He opened his phone again. There was a draft. Just a few words. Did you see the show? Wish you were here. But it remained unsent. Maybe it was for someone who used to watch his performances from the back row. Or maybe for someone who now serves in uniform while he walks the world alone. No name was typed. But the pain? It had a heartbeat. The city and the silence. Outside, fans were still awake. Still replaying clips. Still calling him King of Paris, God of Fashion, Legend of the Night. And he loved them. He always had. But in the stillness of the suite, Taehyung realized something. Even legends crave softness. Not the roar of applause. But the comfort of someone waiting on the couch. Of music not written for charts. Of a laugh not meant for live streams. The sound of a man becoming free. He walked to the window. Bare-chested. Eyes no longer performing. And under the moonlight he whispered, perhaps to himself. Thank you, Paris, but I need to breathe now. Not for the cameras. Not for the headlines. But for himself. He was never just the clothes. Never just the icon. He was the poetry hidden beneath it all. The next morning, as Paris yawned into the golden sunrise, the hotel suite was already empty. Only a used teacup, a folded scarf and a note for the staff remained. Merci pour la silence. Thank you for the silence. And maybe, just maybe, Taehyung had gone somewhere where no flash could follow. Because after the applause fades, after the world puts down its phones, that's where the real Taehyung begins. And the world doesn't know it yet. But this man isn't done rewriting what it means to be beautiful, adored, and deeply, deeply human. He wasn't just the face of the night. He was the soul that lingered after it ended. And while Paris stops to remember him, he's already walking into a new story. Behind every spotlight is a man who still searches for home. Taehyung didn't stay to be celebrated, he came to remember who he was beneath the crown.